Good morning or good afternoon, everyone. So my name is Chantal Audet, and I'm here to present to you today this webinar entitled Improving Organizational Wellness and Ability to Support Change Using a System Transformation Approach. This is part of the 2022 Global Org Change Conference that was online, happening February 2nd to 4th. This is a replay, a re-recording of the session I've held live during this conference. So because I ran into technical issues, I decided to record it again. So you won't benefit from contributions from the participants or any interactions, but I hope I'll make this re-recording interesting anyway for you, so you can get the core message, but also some food for thoughts and some engagement as we go along. So first, again, to present me, so Chantal Audet, and I'm a certified wellness coach, but also experienced organizational change management. I've been supporting change initiatives and organizations for many years. I decided in the last couple of years to also add to my skill sets, the coaching skills, and focus more on organizational wellness. Before I tell you more about why I'm doing this now and why I'm presenting this topic today to you, let me tell you about two stories of clients of mine that I coach as a wellness coach. The first one is about a manager who's facing a huge workload and is also understaffed. So you've seen this before, I'm sure. So he's starting to see signs of fatigue in himself, and he wants to avoid burnout. He knows the signs because he's experienced that in the past, and so he's trying to figure out solutions to actually care for himself while meeting demands of the work. The challenge he has is he cares a lot about his staff. He wants to protect them, make sure they don't get too much work and get overwhelmed themselves, while also trying to meet the demands of the organizations and be seen as a good manager, doing a good job, doing his part. So he feels squeezed in the middle, right? Trying to protect employees, meet the demands while avoiding his own burnout in the midst of it. And the reason why one of the other reasons why he sees that he's, starting to see signs of burnout is that he has, no energy for anything after work. He's getting impatient with his kids, and he, is losing basically his positive mindset, if I can say so. Now, the other story is about a director that is fairly new in the executive rank. When we started coaching sessions together, she was already experiencing a lot of signs of chronic stress, excuse my voice, stomach pain, sleep issues, extreme tiredness, leaving her with no energy after work. She basically, whenever she had some spare time, she couldn't do anything except sleeping. And during work, she also realized that she didn't have the same confidence, the same confidence to make decisions and play a role effectively. And when we started working together, she was already on medication for stress and anxiety. And it's interesting is as we opened up the discussion around this and started supporting her, she also shared a little bit more what she was going through with her colleagues, only to realize that most of them at the executive level were on some form of medications for anxiety, stress, sleep issues, stomach pain, anything related to stress. So it seemed to her that it was kind of the norm. And interestingly is when we first started engaging in conversations through our coaching relationship, she thought, well, that must be the norm. I guess I have to get used to it. But then she realized, oh, maybe there's another way to go about this. Maybe it doesn't have to be this way. We know managing, being an executive is demanding. You have a lot on your plate. You have to make a lot of decisions. It can be really demanding to care for people while, meeting the challenges of, the demanding environment we're in. But it doesn't have to be impacting your health. So I'm sharing those stories because what I notice is as I start working with them to help them improve their habits so they can have more energy, be more focused, manage their stress levels, they became better at it, and it really helped them better manage uncertainty in the demands of their work. But there's only so much we can do by addressing individual needs only, or individual challenges with one-on-one coaching. And so that really, what I notice is for them, it's very difficult to change how they relate to work and how they behave at work because of the pressure of the environment, the social environment, like the norms and how things are done around here. But also, if the way things are done in general is not reconsidered to care for people in that context. Anyway, so I've noticed that over the years, like this is more recent as I focus on wellness, but over the years as well, I've noticed that the wellness of individuals and teams can make or break, the best projects or the best teams. So I've been on projects that were very successful, although very challenging in terms of time frame, innovation, being, outside of the norm and requiring a lot of figuring out and creativity and adjustments. In a project like this that I've experienced was successful because, the team, supported one another. They did make it a priority. We did make it a priority to rest and recover. The leaders would value the people, encourage them, support them not only in terms of their contribution to the work, but as a full well-being. So we had a lot of social connections and support for who we were as team members, as much as we had support for our work. But I've also been on teams and work environments where, they were so dysfunctional, so toxic that people were just either falling apart or leaving the organization one after the other. And I must say that I was one of those who, after months of trying to do my best and contribute and improve things in one of those environments, I decided to leave to care for my own health. And it's sad that, we have to come down to this. And it's interesting in this case that I've always considered myself as being very resilient. I have built over the years like healthy habits. I know how to care for myself, manage stress, release it after work, keep doing the right things like eating healthy and sleeping and exercising to care for myself, even when it's very demanding. But in this environment, I felt like it was too much of that negative energy and draining practices for me to actually be able to sustain. I was lucky I could leave and find something better, but not everybody can. And so that's why I became very interested. It's one of the reasons why I became very interested. So I just adjust this. And investing myself in not only supporting change in organization, but also the reason why I decided to focus on wellness. I find that, health and wellness has always been a passion of mine. This is what I first studied at university before I changed to study business administration, HR, and management. And I've been learning and experimenting, health practices and well-being routines, I guess, over the years to help myself, but also help others around me. But it's only around 2017 when I started struggling with a toxic boss and noticing how tired and unhealthy people around me in the office were, that my desire to help them, not only as part of Change Initiative, but as a colleague and a peer, came back front and center. I thought, well, I've gathered all this knowledge and experience over the years, like why not support people in feeling better? And that's today my contribution, I hope, to not only help organizations perform better, but also support change initiatives moving forward. So this is just a story, a background about me. So I'm here today to share with you what I'm seeing and sensing as it relates to organizational wellness and employee well-being. And that includes the possibilities I see for doing things differently and addressing the root causes of issues like burnout, depression, the Great Resignation, and other chronic illnesses. So I hope we're going to have a good time together, although I'm not interacting through this re-recording with you. I hope you're going to enjoy what I'm going to present. And please, after you watch this webinar, please provide comments. Tell me, if it resonated with you, if you have additional thoughts, and just contribute to the the discussion, although in a delayed fashion. So my intention for you today, or for my intention for this session, sorry, today, is to share my perspective on wellness and org change and propose you an approach to address the gaps that I see. I would also like to invite you to ask questions at the end, although, as I said, because it's re-recording, please share your questions in the comment sections where the video will be posted, and hopefully we'll be able to engage in a dialogue. And so before I start presenting content, I'd like to invite you to just take a few seconds to tune in, take a deep breath, and set an intention for yourself for the next 40 minutes or so, for the time we're going to be spending together. All right, so I'm going to start by sharing my screen now. All right, so you'll be able to follow me here on this presentation. All right, so the first thing to mention is, I think by now you should, if you're attending this specific webinar, I know you understand the link between well-being and organizational performance. When employees are well, we know it boosts performance and productivity, it increases employee satisfaction, reduces turnover, people tend to stay when they feel well, it reduces sick leaves, compensation claims, and it improves also client satisfaction. So I think it should be a given by now that when you invest in employees' wellness or well-being, you invest both in the employee itself, but also in the organization as a whole. When you do this, especially in these days where there's lots of turnover and people getting sick and burnout, etc., that can become actually your competitive advantage if you do a good job in investing in wellness and making a difference for the well-being of your employees. What we notice, if you look at the opposite, if you don't invest in the well-being of your people and they tend to feel stress, and I put quote around stress because experiencing stress is not necessarily bad, but feeling stress, when we say that, we usually mean we're tired, it's too much tension, we can focus, there's different emotions associated with it that are not pleasant. So feeling stress is not necessarily conducive to performance. On the contrary, when people say they feel stressed, we notice they have trouble focusing on tasks, they make more errors, they miss deadlines, they enter into conflicts with peers and superiors, we see more absenteeism and presenteeism as well, and they're more likely to burn out or quit. And as it relates to change, what we see, that can be also a major factor of change resistance. Now, there's different things we know that can lead to resistance, but the direct link is any of those factors will create a stress response, a response in the body and the mind that close people off, and they won't feel like engaging in the change. Let's put it this way. Yet, what we see that organizations need now, and what they're looking for is employees who can focus and think clearly, can be open and creative, adapt well to change, collaborate effectively. We want them also to be able to show compassion, build trust, be engaged and learn, all those things that are, required to deal with the environment we're in. The challenge, as you can see, is if you don't manage stress, then it reduces your capacity. And stress will be created by different things, not only the changes you introduce, but the uncertainty of the environment, the complexity of, maneuvering the new work environment and the challenges of society, different risks perceived by the person. All these will increase the stress levels. Now, a stress response is good in itself to respond to this because it raises your alertness, it gets you ready to focus and engage and learn. The problem is if that stress response is ongoing or too high, then you lose your capacity, as I just said. And you lose the capacity to basically respond in a way that will be effective facing those challenges. So when you face uncertainty, you need to be able to think outside the box, think strategically, be more creative, for example. You don't want to be closed down and, narrowed focus, if I can say so. So I'm just going to pause here and invite you to, just pause a moment and tune in your body and maybe tell me later in the comments if what I'm sharing so far, it resonates with you. Like, is the link between wellness and performance and stress level and capacity, for example, is it clear for you? Like, do you see that if we care for people, manage their stress level so they feel better, they will be in better position to not only perform, but also support change? I hope it resonates with you and what you've seen in organizations. Now, as it comes to wellness initiatives and organizations, I believe that we're not doing enough to support the well-being of employees. Oops, sorry, so I'm just passing here. Sorry, I'm mixing my pages here. So before I get into, what I think we're not doing enough, let me just dive into more of the issues we're facing. I forgot to cover that. So burnout is on the rise. I think this is obvious now that we're not doing a good job in managing wellness, because although organizations have invested much more in the last 2 years in face of the pandemic, we see the numbers rising compared to previous surveys. So this quote here that says over half of survey respondents are experiencing burnout in 2021, which is up from 43% who said the same pre-COVID survey. Now, if more people are feeling not well at work, that's due to different factors, that are work-related most of the time. It's not just you not sleeping well and not being good at managing your energy, unmanageable workloads, lack of support, lack of clarity. These are all factors that will impact how we feel at work and whether we're going to feel well or not. But it's not just about working more hours or facing more demands. Some people do well in that context. So what makes a difference? I've seen other studies that show that what's draining us and leading us to burnout are 3 things: the lack of meaning, a lack of sense of control, and lack of connection. So these are the 3 I'm going to be focusing on in the approach I'll be proposing later, is how do you help people make sense of what's going on, regain a sense of control, but also build connection that can support them in facing stress, uncertainty, and the challenges ahead. And this is very important because change fatigue, is been shown as potentially, if not the leading cause of project failure. And my interpretation, having been involved in projects, is that, and in supporting individual change, is to change the way you do things, to change your habits, your ways of operating that are automatic, that you're accustomed to. You need to invest attention and energy. So you need to be able to focus, invest energy, which is a bit demanding. It creates a stress response, as I said, which is raise alertness, helps you learn. But if you don't manage that stress response, then you can become overwhelmed and burn out, basically get too tired to actually invest even more energy to support the change. Or it could be that you're already, not in a good place to start with and don't have any capacity to pay attention and invest energy in the change. So in that case, when we add another change or invite employee to change yet again, then we're adding to their burden. So the link between change, energy, attention, and stress is pretty obvious to me. If we don't manage well-being, we won't be able to support change, and we're going to create more change fatigue. And that's probably, the most common frustration. At least this survey that was done by the conference board, I think in 2018, among participants to a conference, it shows that the leaders of that conference described the most common frustration for them was navigating change fatigue. And the biggest challenge that they anticipated in driving business transformation was employees becoming disengaged and exhausted. So you can see here, well-being is pervasive in our ability to support change, but also, just performance in general. All right, so as I said before, I don't think, although we did a good job in investing in wellness and well-being over the last 2 years, and most importantly, in putting a lot of attention on mental health, which has to continue, we're not doing enough. There are gaps, I find. For example, we provide a lot of workshops and training and knowledge and tools for people to develop their skills in managing their well-being, but that's not enough. Employees, employees and people in general, we need a support system. Sometimes we need coaching to help us integrate those changes in our habits, in our day-to-day environment. You've all experienced this. You go on a training, you're all excited about this new knowledge, you come back to work, you get distracted, there's too much going on, so much resistance changing things, and it just fall apart. You just never implement what you've learned. So training and knowing is not enough. We need support system, and in some cases coaching, to help people integrate those habits and new ways of doing in the day-to-day. I also find that individual change is not enough. We are social beings, so if our energy level, if how we feel and how we perform is influenced by our social environment, that means, everyone is contributing to the overall energy and well-being of the group at work. So you can do your part by managing your own well-being, but if nobody else is doing it, or if the majority is feeling low and not supported to feel well, then, there's only so much you can do by yourself. So it's a bit unfair for organizations to only support individual and not tackle the relationships and the connections and the ways teams actually work together across the organization. And I find that wellness programs are not enough. There are good things. That's good that we've been investing in those, but providing benefits, employee assistance program, or wellness activities will only target either the symptoms, or once it went too far for you, you need help, we'll provide it for you, that's good, but we manage the symptoms, not the root causes of what led you in this place, in the first place. And wellness activities are nice, we all need to do things that will make us feel better, but if the way we're working and interacting with people is draining us, well, we're not basically addressing where the key problem is. So we have to consider wellness as part of our day-to-day operations. And even more than that, we have to consider wellness or the well-being of employees as part of the culture. So this being more than just a program or benefits on the side, it has to be integrated in the way we work and the way we think about work. And I think, so what I've been sharing so far is what I see is not working. So if I summarize some of the key things I notice is the problem. One of the problems is we assume wellness is an individual responsibility or problem. So we put a lot of pressure on individuals to develop the skills or change their habits to feel better. As a coach, I believe we can do so much more than we have been taught to, or we've learned to manage our own energy and stress level and perform better. So that's a given. I think everybody could do better. And if with the right support and knowledge, they can actually improve their own individual wellness. But I don't think, this is good enough. You can learn to get out of survival mode, but if you always find yourself in an environment that makes you trigger the survival response, then you're just repeating the same pattern over and over. There's also a disconnect I find between what employees want and what organizations are offering right now. And you can search the internet, you'll see there's a few articles on that where the organization is offering what I just said, some trainings and workshops and benefits and programs. But meanwhile, employees are saying what we want is more flexibility in how, when, and with who we work. It's, more meaningful work. We want to feel valued and connected to our colleagues. And so they want also to understand the sense, how is this contributing to the whole? They want to feel meaning as well. The other thing as well, I think we've noticed is it's also about the workload. This one is more tricky. I think what's behind workload as an issue is not the high demands and the very complex files that we give to people who can, manage those when they feel good. The problem is the lack of control they have. Sometimes they feel they just don't have control on their days and not enough flexibility to do what's being asked from them and also deliver on other commitments. We also notice as one of the problems is the managers feel squeezed in the middle to some extent, right? Between employees that they need to support, because we know managers being, closest to employees are the one who have the most influence on their well-being and have responsibility for the well-being of employees. But they also get all the pressures from the top management, right? The organization needs to transform, it needs to change, it needs to perform, we need to adapt and pivot and all those words. And so can you imagine managers in the middle? Like, we put all these pressures on them to support their employees' well-being, but they also suffer. Like everybody, they're part of the same system that's putting pressure on them and making it challenging for them to care for themselves. So we also need to support them. And the last thing I want to mention is what we see a lot more employees resigning or deciding to quit or hoping to quit the organization soon because they think it's going to be better elsewhere, only to find out in a lot of cases that they will find the same culture, the same issues elsewhere. So we're not helping any of us by not addressing the root causes of wellness. We can play musical chair for a little while, but the culture is pervasive. Some organizations do better, but there are we have ways of thinking about work, of engaging in our work, in the way we do things that are not healthy. And until we go deep enough and address the beliefs and the thought patterns associated with it that are creating illness or lack of wellness, then we won't, make a big difference for employees. Okay, so I've talked a lot here. All that to say, there's lots of issues, but what I'm trying to position here is those issues are systemic. And systemic means that it's nobody's fault, yet it's everyone's fault. And as I just showed briefly in my presentation before I turn it off, I like this quote that says, "We all contribute to creating results that nobody wants." By that, we mean if you're part of a system, which is an organization, a culture, a city, whatever system you're looking at, but let's say you're part of an organization or a project team, and you complain that there's too much work, it's draining, it doesn't work, like I don't feel well here. You may not intentionally contribute to creating that environment, but because you're part of it, somehow in the way you think, the way you show up, the way you interact with people, and the way you work, you're also contributing to this. Now, I'm not saying this in a way to blame people. It's not a blame game here. I'm saying this to show that if we are all contributing to it, that means that together we have the responsibility and the ability to fix it. It just means that we need another way to look at the issue so that we can address the systemic aspect of it. So if we look at this model that I took from the Presencing Institute in the Theory U model, usually when we look at problems, we look at what appears on the surface, so the behaviors, and sometimes we will go underneath a little bit to address processes, maybe policies, but we rarely go further down because it requires a specific, way of addressing what's at the core of how we think and how we see the world and our beliefs. And so if we want to make a big difference, we need basically a process that will help us go address those root causes, tap to the source, if we could say, of all of those behaviors so that we can make a significant change on the surface, shift things, transform, whatever word. And when we say source here, I like this quote as well, to say that the success of the intervention depends on the interior conditions of the intervener. So if you're not willing to open up, if you're closed-minded, if you're not willing to go in and touch, your heart and what's wanting to emerge, then, and you're not present in the process, then you will just repeat, what you've done and what you know. What we want is to change how we perceive and how we are in the interactions in the system so that we can change the way we enact based on that. Now, when I said that we all contribute to the system that nobody really wants, some of the examples I can give you of beliefs that we hold that are that are contributing to maintaining the system are, for example, we tend to believe that we need to work hard to perform. So many people I've seen, and I've used to be like this, that as the demand rises and there's more pressure to deliver, what do? We work harder, we work more, and we don't stop until it's done. Now, we know today, for example, that we need to develop a counterintuitive, if I can say, approach to it. Is they're harder, the more demanding things are, the more diligence we have to be about taking breaks and resting and caring for ourselves, so that when we show up and then when we actually are in action, we are at our full capacity. The other one that we hear often is, or hear, not necessarily here, I don't think I've seen people voice it, but we know, we kind of hold that belief is, if I'm busy, it means I'm important. So we all tend to maintain a busy schedule because it makes us feel like our life is full and meaningful and we are important. Same at work. Like if you show up, if you try that, if you show up a week, your calendar is not really full, how do you feel? Like, do you feel like, suddenly, I have more time to do real meaningful work? Or do you feel like, it's interesting, maybe I'm not busy enough, everybody seems to be running, like why nobody wants to meet with me, or why am I not receiving as many emails, for example, right? Anyway, I won't extend on that, but there are beliefs that we all collectively, consciously or not, that are contributing to maintaining ways of doing at work that are not helping us feel good. So if we want to address wellness as a systemic issue, I think we need to use a system approach and make it a collective responsibility to fix it. So that means it's not just the leader's role to improve wellness at work. Like many change practitioners or anybody who's involved in organizations, I believe, yes, leaders have a key role. They do have more influence. They have more responsibility over employees, so they need to show the way, they need to be invested and contribute their part. But they are also part of a system. They're also suffering. We see burnout rising much more quickly now amongst leaders and managers than any other group of employees. So if they're struggling too, we need to propose to them in their organization another approach where collectively we can look at issues that are making everybody stressed out and not well. All right, so I'll take a little break here and ask you, after hearing all of this, how do you feel now? Like, tune into your body and try to sense what are the emotions that you're feeling. Like, do you feel a sense of contractions and heaviness, or do you feel like lightness? Like, how do you feel? For me, after sharing with you all these challenges and all the things that I'm not doing well and all the things, yes, we do, but are not enough, I tend to feel a little bit demotivated. So that's why now I'm going to move on and stop talking about what's not working and actually introduce potential solutions or new ways of doing that could make a difference. But before I do share with you some of the solutions that I envision, I think it's important to talk about the importance of connection in wellness, as well as holding space to support that connection. Different theories, including polyvagal theory on the nervous system, has shown that we need connection to be well, to live longer. Actually, people who live the longest are not necessarily just the people who exercise and eat well. There are people who have meaningful supporting connections or relationships in their lives. So we need that to feel healthy. And we know that from the birth, right? A child without the care of a mother or someone around will not survive. So we need connection, we need care and attention. But it's also important for our nervous system. It's been shown that under a stressful situation, if we feel supported and if we feel we have connections with others, it really modulates our stress response so that we feel calmer in face of challenges. The reason in how it works it's not just psychological. It's not like, I see you supporting me, so I feel better. The polyvagal theory has shown that our nervous system actually detects cues of safety without our conscious awareness. So we have this what we call neuroception, where it's like our body, our heart, like our nervous system is always on the lookout for cues. And for example, social cues that will trigger a safety response or a stress response are related to facial expressions, the tone of voice, whether the way someone looks at you or not. These are, for example, things that will, they may signal safety or stress response. And this happens without our conscious awareness. So this is why sometimes in an interaction with someone, we may feel more closed off and less at ease to share and open up and connect with that person. It's probably something that our nervous system has detected that signals that it's not safe to be with this person. And this is a physical response that then can be interpreted by the mind. And sometimes we try to rationalize and just shut it down and just go, ignore it, which is very difficult to do. Anyway, all that to say that if the way we interact, if we need connection and the way we interact will either signal trust or stress response, then we need to be more intentional in the way we interact with one another. And one of the ways to do that is by what we call holding space for someone, for a group of people. Holding space has different interpretation, but basically for me, I like the definition I saw that describes it as, it's like creating an energetic container within which we feel like we can let our guards down and we can actually feel safe and be able to open and share. And I say energetic because it's the energy, the emotions that we project that the other person's nervous system can detect that will create that space. And so thinking about it in my own experience of holding space at different levels, I believe there are 3 ingredients that are necessary to create that holding space so that people feel safe in the sense of psychologically safe as well, not just a body response. So we need presence. So when we're with someone else, if they are in the here and now and really paying attention to us, then we will, feel whole in that space. We need deep listening. So it's one thing to be here and now, but we need to actually pay attention to what the other person is saying and what the person is not saying as well. So paying attention to the whole experience and how we're resonating with this as well. And then suspending judgment, because whether we want it or not, what's being said or shared or what we see and sense may trigger reactions in us, emotional reactions, thoughts. And so we have to be able to develop the capacity to suspend judgment. That means if it comes up, any thoughts, any critiques, any assessment of the situation comes up, we have to be able to hold it as if in front of us so that we can see it and not be carried away by it and then distracted and not paying attention to the person in front of us. So when we do this, when we are present, we'll listen with empathy and we suspend judgment, then we are actually holding space for someone. And this can happen in a coaching relationship, so the one-on-one relationship. We can also create this as a group, and this is done through the process of dialogue, for example, like a facilitated dialogue that has some basic rules of, listening and suspending judgment. We'll create that holding space for a group to feel comfortable and safe to share and open up. And we can also create holding space at the system level. And this is what I'd like to show you in a few minutes. The awareness-based system change approach or the 3U approach, as some might have heard of it, that can help create that safe container for a system or participants from the system to actually go deeper in their conversation and actually tackle what's underneath the iceberg. So before I continue and show you my my proposed approach to bridging the gaps that I see in wellness and in support of change in organizational performance, I'd like to just invite you to think for a minute about what I just mentioned about the importance of connection and holding space, and think of a moment where you feel you've been held by someone or by your group and how you felt in that space. Because we talk a lot about psychological safety and building trust and cohesions and themes, but have you experienced it before? And what was it that made you feel safe in that space? Safe to feel, safe to share what you think, how you feel, safe to be just yourself, right? Safe, put whatever you want on it. Have you experienced it? And what were the key ingredients of that safe space? All right. So I spent a few minutes on holding space because that's at the core of my proposed approach to supporting wellness. And my approach is all about bridging the gap that I see between individual wellness and organizational wellness using 3 different approaches. The first one is changing habits through wellness coaching. That's tackling more the individual ability to get out of survival mode, right? And feel better and be able to engage with others. And then we have changing conversations through wellness dialogues. So helping a group of people to engage with one another in a way that feels safe, where they can actually listen to one another and open up new possibilities, if I can say so. And these 2, individual and teams level engagement, are providing the foundation for engaging at the organizational level to change the culture through a system transformation approach. So bridging the gap between knowing and doing, between individuals and teams, and between employees' needs and organizational needs by addressing the root causes of the issues. The other way to look at it is what I'm proposing, this is my offer to organizations, is coming in to help change habits, change conversation, change the culture. And through coaching, facilitating dialogues, and consulting services through a system approach. And the reason and the overall purpose is really to help at the individual level people get out of survival mode so that they can connect authentically and listen deeply to one another. So change the way they engage in conversations so that they can co-create together meaningful changes and address the root causes of well-being issues at work. Now, let me tell you a little bit more about the awareness-based system change approach, or Theory U, or system transformation approach. This is something I covered last year during the same conference, where I basically walk people through Theory U and how it could support and help organizational change and transformation. This is just a snapshot. I invite you to go review, or view again, watch again this presentation from last year. But in a nutshell, Theory U, or awareness-based system change, is a framework, right? It's a way of thinking and understanding systems. It's a process as well, as you can see with the arrow. And that has 5 key movements, if we call it this, and you can see there's co in front of all of them. So it's a collective process where we assemble a team of people that represents the organization to co-initiate the process together around a common intent. And then slowly we go deep into the co-sensing journey, so they can observe not only with their mind, also with their heart and their body. So open mind, open heart, trying to sense what's going on in the system, engaging with different part of the system, to get to a point where they can engage in stillness and silence and really listen in. Once they've gathered all this and they sense what's going on in their place in the system, together through dialogues and other tools and personal reflection, they can tap into their inner knowing. So tapping into the source and see, okay, what's really wanting to emerge here? What's the best way forward? What's the inspired actions I'd like to take here? And so this is where a group can then move into co-creating prototypes or new ways of working and doing that will make a difference based on that inspiration that's not coming from automatic downloads, but from another source, right? From a shared understanding and a deep understanding of what's going on. And then as they prototype this, they get feedback and they do other, mini use to see, Is this actually providing the results we want? And then as they see the effectiveness of those prototypes, they can co-evolve in making those prototypes new ways of doing at large in the organization. This entire process and those movements are supported with different social technology tools. I'm not going to get into them, but in a nutshell, they're derived from its embodied practice, this mindfulness involved. We're using arts, we're using our hands. So it's a full body experience, and it's a co-creation approach as well. So it draws from design thinking as well. So this is what I see there's a lot of potential in using this approach in organizations where they keep facing wellness issues and not seeing a big difference in the results or in these indicators as they invest in wellness. If that means that maybe there are things underneath the surface that they need to address as a system so that it can all improve the results for the system. So that's for theory U. Now I'd like to share with you two things. The first one is my current offer to organizations. So if you know organizations who are willing to go a bit further in investing in wellness to make a real difference for employees and leaders, then that would be for them. It's an offer as well that could fit very well with any major change or transformation initiatives where you want to support employees' well-being along the way, so alongside this change initiatives. And so let me just share that with you. And so based on the different gaps that I see and, the idea of changing habits, changing conversation, and changing the system, what I'm offering to organization, I think as not an entry package, but a comprehensive solution that will help change those habits and conversation and build the capacity for system change if they're ready and willing to go thereafter, is this support over 6-7 months. That includes workshops so that all employees can actually learn the basics and implement different practices to better manage or master their stress and energy. So help them get out of survival mode or be better at calming down and getting in a state where they can perform better and also engage better, right? Be more open and collaborative. Along that, these are the intro workshops. Along that, there's two things that I offer is wellness dialogues. So a series of monthly events where we create that space for employees to come together and learn to listen empathetically to one another, to suspend judgment, but also most of all, a space to share safely stories and experiences and what's working and not working for them so that they can build a different understanding, maybe walk away with new insights, but also just feel well by being together and supporting one another and knowing that they're not alone in the struggle. So I think we need that right now. We need wellness dialogues. We need safe space for people to come together and share and support one another. But some people will need additional help or will want to go further and really get the help of a coach to change their habits and really improve, their habits so they can feel better at work and also outside of work. Like it's holistic, wellness here. So I'm offering in-house coaching. So a bank of hours that the organization is ready for employees to tap into. The advantage here of being in-house is the employee doesn't have to do his own research to find a coach. It's paid by the organization, but it's also as a coach, being familiar with the organization, being embedded in it to some extent, we can direct employees to existing resources, whether EAP benefits or wellness activities, but also see trends, notice trends, and maybe provide advice to the organization to improve their wellness program. And as a fourth pillar here is consulting services, so guidance and advice to implement this approach, the dialogues, coaching, and workshop, but also be there to guide and support the organization on their wellness program and initiatives, or even change initiatives, right? So how to tweak the way it's planned and delivered so that we better manage stress and improve well-being. So this is what I'm offering to organizations. So soon I'll have my website up with a description of it, but anybody you know, or if you are interested, just contact me and we'll have a discussion as what it means and what's the best way to support your organization or your team. The last thing before I finish is I presented Theory U, and that's something I don't think all organizations are ready to invest in a system transformation approach to improve well-being. But what I would like to do until we build the capacity and people get familiar with this approach and see the value in it, is I'd like to pilot using Theory U to support or improve wellness in one organization. So I'm building the team right now to will help me plan and deliver this approach, but also capture the stories and the data and make a case study out of it. But I will need also an organization who's willing to host that and participate and benefit from that approach. So if you are either interested in, participating in the pilot as a Theory U practitioner and working alongside the organization to deliver that, or most importantly, if you are part of an organization or an organization that's open enough and ready for that approach and to pilot it, please let me know, contact me, and I'll be interested to have a chat with that organization. And when I say organization, I think we really means an organization that has a leader or someone responsible for the group of employee that believes in wellness, as that wellness is important for performance. They've already invested in well-being in the organization, and they don't see the results they want to, and they want to go further and explore alternative avenues. So these are the conditions that I see. So if you know someone, an organization who's open, who might be interested, please let me know. We'll have a chat. I'll have a chat with them, and that will be great. So on that, I'd like to thank you for your time. I am sorry that you have to watch this replay with just me talking in my presentation and no other interaction. But again, I invite you to share your comments, ask questions, and please interact in the comments below the recording once you see it, or just send me an email, a message through LinkedIn, and I'll be my pleasure to engage in discussion with you. So thank you very much. Enjoy the rest of your day and stay in touch.